let's hop in. How much do you work? I want to kind of start there. How much do you work in a day owning your own business? And we'll talk about, yeah, I'll tell you how much I work, how it's kind of changed. And then let's hop into some of the best practices or what we see other people doing. I'd love to hear that. So, yeah, let's start. How much are you putting in daily or weekly? What does that look like?
I find that for my work schedule, my work day, I work in sprints or like batches. So I have my most momentum. I'm at my most productive in the mornings. So my morning sprint is kind of that get all the important stuff done. Yeah. Anything before lunch, I feel like is where you kind of zone in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I used every productivity tool under the sun, thinking, oh, I had to work more hours equaled, better output. And I kind of lumped myself into this thinking that output was linear. And what that meant was 1 hour, all hours were created the same. So if I worked an hour at 8 a.m., it was the same as working at 10 p.m., and I would get the same quality of content out, and I could just do more and more and more of those. I had to change my mindset though, kind of like, and not even mindset, just actually how I act. And that was starting to do my highest value task in the morning and getting out of this idea that work is something that's linear. It's interesting, as you start your business, I feel like there's a pressure to work all hours of the day and just say, like, I'm busy, I'm grinding, the hustle never stops, whatever catchphrase is going around that year. Did you feel that early on in your business, like you had to be at the computer or working all hours of the day?
When I look back at starting the business, I feel I was definitely trying to do too much. I would literally fall asleep with my laptop open every night. I just kind of wake up in the middle of the night and get back to work. Like I remember waking up at 3 in the morning, and since my laptop was on my bed, I would just start working again, which that wasn't healthy and that was not sustainable. Burnout is real when you push that hard, I think.
Yeah, like as entrepreneurs and honestly anybody who's working, you're not some part of an assembly line that can just produce your service over and over again until infinity. When I first started, I was the same. I was like, oh, it's sleep is for the weak, and I'll just hustle and I'll make up. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I would say dumb shit like that, and that was such a wrong way to look at it. I let my business run my life and me not run my business for a long time. And we're not alone, right? We look at entrepreneurs are largely sleep deprived. 1 in 3 Americans is sleep deprived or are sleep deprived. And that to me is very interesting because we think that we're helping ourselves out by working all hours of the day. But if we don't get that adequate rest and actually go through and take the time to recharge the batteries before we get out there and exert ourselves, we're just not going to be effective, right? It's pretty plain and simple. I think that Naval, oh, I can never say his last name, so we'll just call him Naval. Naval has this interesting thing called the Lion Framework. Are you familiar with that?
I feel like you've mentioned it before. Yeah, go ahead, please explain it.
Naval, which if you just search for anyone listening, search for Naval on Twitter. I believe he's at Naval. He's got a Naval podcast, and it's good content. And Silicon Valley is very very popular, but he's got this thought, and I tend to agree with him that human beings need to work like lions. So what that means is we work in sprints, and then we rest, recharge, and then we work in another sprint. So we don't think about work as this linear thing where we can have outputs, but really, hey, when can I sit, focus, exert a lot of energy on a task, and then take a break, recharge, step away? Now, I know not everybody has the luxury of doing that. If you're working at a full time job and your boss expects you to be there, etc. But if you are starting your own business and running your own business, I actually really like this framework. It's been something that I now have adopted. And I have started to understand that I'm going to get 3 good sprints a day, maybe some days 4, maybe some days 2, but I'm probably going to get 3 good, 2 hour chunks where I can really put pen to paper, so to speak. So that's the Lion framework, which is much different than the, oh, let's work 12 hours and each hour will have the same amount of output. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you would want to adopt? You do adopt? It sound crazy. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think almost out of necessity, I've adopted that type of working. I would almost call it a cycle. I would imagine, I mean, I can't speak for you, but as a woman, you have these natural ebbs and flows in your month, in your whether it's hormonal, whether you're feeling a bit tired sometimes, there are moments where I've had to learn to just listen to my body and listen to my kind of ride the wave. So if I am feeling more productive, just try and push through, get as much done. Sometimes you kind of feel like you're on a high when you're checking things off and feel like you're in good flow. You feel like the way you're thinking is so clear. It's almost like that movie with the drug that makes your brain.
Limitless. Yeah, the Bradley Cooper
Yes.
Limitless. It really is like being
Yes.
in the zone, right? I definitely say like when you're in the zone, try to hold on to that. Put your phone on
Yeah.
silent, like because the shit that kills that for me when I'm in a good sprint is like I just get distracted, right? And I look at it and I say, okay, I see the statistics. The average American wastes roughly 3 hours a day, is what they've self-reported. They say they just waste time at work. That to me means that we're distracted. We're also distracted, and if we look at our phone and look at our app usage, I'm sure it'll tell me. I'm going to pull it up right now and just see my screen time because I want to know how bad it's been. Yeah, like I'm averaging 5 hours a day on a phone,
I
and
don't even wanna look. I honestly don't wanna look because I know especially when I'm stressed, I am using the phone more often. I'm logging onto the social platforms. I'm looking kind of actively seeking distraction. But the hard part is kind of reining that back in or realizing, okay, if you're going to take a break, step away all the way. Go for a walk, go run an errand you need to, go exercise, read something intentionally, read a book, like really give your brain a rest and completely let go of that thought. Allow yourself to think and do something else to try and intentionally refresh because otherwise your brain is still simmering on the project that you're allowing yourself to be distracted by, and maybe you're feeling like kind of shitty about yourself for allowing yourself to get distracted, and it can kind of become this snowball effect that leads you 5 hours into TikTok on a random Tuesday afternoon. But yeah.
yeah, those apps will get you. I always find too if I catch myself going down the rabbit hole on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, I know, okay, like take the phone, throw it over there, close all the apps and be like I'm just going to sit here or like you said I'm going to go and do something else, right? It's so easy. I see so many people and people in our network, we're guilty of it too, that we outsource every task, not only in our business, we try to, but in our lives as well. So, oh, I'm going to buy meal prep. Oh, I'm going to get laundry done. Oh, I'm going to have someone clean my house. Now, I think some of those things are good. However, I think when we do too much of that type of thing, we wrap our entire self-worth up in one activity, and that is work. So we can't actually be proud of, oh, I cooked dinner. Oh, I cleaned the kitchen. Oh, I did some laundry. Where I've kind of now found that I enjoy cooking because it gives me a little sense of pride in something that is totally not related to work. And I can take my mind off it. And my identity isn't as wrapped up in work. So I think when we're looking at this topic of how much should you work, it starts, for me at least, separating my identity from the company because when my identity was wrapped in Cave, oh, the agency, this is all I am, this is who I am. I had all my handles were at Cave Jordan. It was literally all I talked about. It's probably annoying as hell to be around. And it's building your identity on a house of cards because businesses can come and go. You can have down years. You can have things out of your control, in your control, whatever. But it's only part of you. It's not all of you. So I think that when you're able to separate that, then we're able to structure days a little differently and go, oh, I'm going to go for a walk at 1 p.m. I'm going to work on Saturday and take Monday off. So that's something that's been really interesting to me is like separating myself from the work. Do you have any issues with that or have you felt that?
All the time. At this point in my entrepreneurial career, I've realized that I have to do myself a favor. I have to start booking in times where I'm intentionally taking a break. I have to put it on my calendar so that I know, okay, it's something to look forward to or something an intentional distraction that you don't feel guilty about. Because if you like for me, I get so caught up in the day to day, like in the work itself. Like you're saying, like without doing something else that I don't feel is a marker of my worth, which is you know, on one hand, trying to separate yourself from the things that you do and find that self-worth in find that self-worth and find your identity separate from other things, other people, other activities. And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, making time for yourself, booking it out in your calendar to do a workout so that you know you are proactively doing things for yourself that'll help prevent burnout later on. I find that really helpful. I also find like, a workout challenge or something else that you can be excited about and see your progress over time. Like the process of habit development is something I'm really intrigued by. And ever since reading Atomic Habits a few years ago, I've tried to apply it to my daily kind of life and my daily routine so I can check things off that are unrelated to work and feel like, okay, great. I can look back on this in a week and see I've accomplished things. I've meditated 6 days out of 10, or, things like that that are separate from work to help maintain your sense of self.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like setting up habits and setting up hobbies. I think hobbies became demonized almost, or there was this immense pressure from like 2013 onward where if you have a hobby, you need to monetize it. It's like
Oh, I
nobody
got
was
so caught up in that.
yeah, nobody was allowed to just have a hobby. Like you couldn't just have a hobby and enjoy that and then go from there. That's something that I think has been kind of lost, and I mean COVID took a lot of that away, but we got to find that again, right? I think that's something as an entrepreneur is like you don't want to lose your hobbies and you don't want to join what I call the NFL or no friends left because all you do is talk about your business and you just say I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so busy. Yeah, everybody's busy, homie. So what we got to do is make time to actually sit with our friends, to go for hobbies, to separate ourselves from work. This episode is funny. It started off as like, how much should you work? But it's really about how to avoid burnout, like you said. And I think it's something that we've seen a lot of people go through, even at work, starting their own company, etc. For the person who is listening to this and has a full time gig and is doing a side hustle, is doing that, how or what would you tell them? Because they might be like, yeah, that's all hunky dory if you're doing it full time and you're able to step away. But I work all day as a teacher, or I work all day for a tech company, and now I have a side hustle. Is what would you tell them, or how would you maybe approach living a more balanced life or integrating life into work a little bit for those folks? Any tips?
As a person with no children, because I know that's a big factor for families, people who have families. But as a person without children, who, if I were in their position, I would just say, first and foremost, you have to make time for yourself that's free, that's separate from your side hustle, that's separate from your job, where you're just thinking about yourself and thinking about, I mean, I take regular time to reflect on my direction and my path. And I find so much joy in being able to look back and say, okay, wow, I can look back on my journey and see how I pivoted. And it kind of gives you a bit more peace with where you are. So I think, especially for someone who wants to take on a side hustle and who wants to build something else, you can't run yourself dry. You can't overwork yourself without replenishing that energy. Even if it is a hobby that you enjoy, I would recommend taking time where you can do something that's fun and separate, completely separate from what you're doing.
Yeah, there's two things there. I say so. I remember I was writing articles for Inc. on like having a morning routine and Inc. magazine. They got published, all these things, and then people came at me and they're like, "You don't have kids," and I said, "Okay, well then move the routine up an hour." Like there's a certain point where I am sympathetic to those who have kids, but I also talk to entrepreneurs, people who have children. Turn off the TV, take your TV out of your bedroom, go to bed an hour earlier, and wake up an hour before your kids wake up to spend time on yourself, right? I think after the kids go to bed, okay, now work on the side hustle. One thing I would say to someone who is starting, look, you want to start a business around your job, you have some things on your side if you're doing that someone who maybe is all in on the business doesn't have. One, you have money, so you can pay people to help you. If you are starting a side hustle, you seriously want that to become your business, think about that your salary is like your first investor. in your company, and it allows you to pay for a virtual assistant. It allows you to get copywriting done. It allows you to get your website done. Don't think that you just have to muscle it all out. So if you don't have time, buy your time back by paying people to help you. You have to get over this, like, oh, my salary is all mine and I can't deploy that into the business. No, start to think about things as total revenue, and then look where you can deploy and get that. So I would say number one, buy time. Two, I think the people I've seen that have been the most successful, they know to take at least a day off per week. They're able to have a recovery day where they don't do any work. They don't work on their career. They don't work on their side hustle. They are totally present with their kids. They do something. They go to Disneyland. They whatever, go ice skating. Doesn't matter. They do something that is not related to work. LeBron James, NBA players, they all take one day off a week. It's called a regen day, where they literally do nothing. They'll just recover, stretch, whatever. Along with, hey, yeah, get up an hour earlier, physical fitness, make time for yourself. I think you have to set certain times where you're not going to work. And it's kind of like it starts addition by subtraction. So, like, okay, I am not going to work on my side hustle on Sundays, right? For
And be
me,
real with yourself
yep.
too. Like, don't pretend. That's something I still kind of battle with, to be honest. Is I, if there's a lull in my productivity in a week, maybe I find that I'm not as productive as I hoped to be. Then I'm like, okay, well, this weekend I'll work. I'll work Saturday and I'll work Sunday. And then the weekend comes and you don't feel like working. It's just maintaining, like you're saying, maintaining those boundaries, giving yourself that permission to say, okay, Sundays, I don't pick up my computer on Sundays. I don't work at all on, at least, I mean, I don't know what that frequency looks like, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, but I completely agree. You have to be real with yourself, be kind to yourself in that respect as well. Like, don't work yourself to the bone, because it's not going to, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And yes, you may have little sprints of productivity, but you can't maintain that. If you're running a marathon, you run slower than you do if you're running a 100-meter dash.
And you don't need to be Google overnight, right? So this is the other thing. If you think about your side hustle and making that into a business, there's this idea, are you building a car or a rocket ship, right? So cars, they go slower, but they get you where you need to go. Rocket, and they're going to get there, right? They might need repairs along the way, but they go. Rocket ships are meant for going to space fast, and they either get there or they blow up. So, which one, is your startup? Is it all in, and then you raise money, and then you run out of cash, and that's it? So, I think most people listen to this podcast probably fall into the car category. I fall into the car category, right? I think your business does as well. So,
Hmm.
okay, let's embrace that. That means I'm allowed to stop. I'm allowed to put gas in the car. I'm allowed to take nights off from my side hustle. Hey, maybe it's as simple as, I know that Monday through Wednesday, I have a lot of energy. Great. Those are going to be my heavy work days. Then Thursday, Friday, I'm taking the nights off because I'm going to spend it with my family. I'm going to go to dance lessons. I'm going to do whatever. Okay. Saturday, I'm going to go all in on my side hustle, my business. Sunday, I'm taking off. That's a much more palatable and realistic plan to me versus it's grind set, baby, work all the time, every day. Because when you do that, like that whole nonsense, the hustle culture shit, when you do that, if you go too all in, you're going to come out with inferior product. You're probably going to have panic
That's when you
attacks.
spend, yeah, that's that 5 hours in a day on TikTok right there, is when you try to push too hard and you can't step away. You don't notice that you're getting distracted. You don't notice that your productivity is lulled, and you just kind of keep pushing. Next thing you know, you're scrolling through some random website down a deep rabbit hole.
Oh, it's real. It's also like, it's just one of these things when you push yourself to the brink like that, there are also health consequences. Like, I remember I was 30 years old and I was at the peak of my hustle, 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 working, trying to build the agency. And I billed 220 hours. So it was like 220 hours actually worked. I know a lot of people say, oh, I work 100-hour weeks. Yeah, you don't. I call BS. So it was 220 hours billed. I was not taking care of my body nutrition wise, anything, too much caffeine, whole bunch of stuff. And I was like having chest pains. And I go to the doctor, find out that it's essentially anxiety and sleep deprivation. So, oh, cool. So this is what's happening. Started meditating again, started ending my days at 5:36 instead of 9:30, 10. And big surprise, the business close to doubled and my health fully completely back to where I thought it was, when I was in college playing football. Oh, I'm back, I'm healthy again. The business has doubled. And that was such a pivotal moment for me to be like, oh, if I step away, recharge, I'm actually going to perform better. I've seen that the evolution take place even now, where I go, oh, we've moved to the West. I'm on the West Coast now. Before I was on the East. So now I wake up and I see that my East Coast clients are emailing, doing all these things, etc. I go, great. I'm not answering them until it's 9 a.m. my time. I have to take this my morning, hold it near and dear. Everyone's going to be okay, right? If it's an emergency, they'll call. But for the most part, it's okay if I get back to them 2 to 3 hours later and I can go have a workout. I can have my morning routine. Do you do anything like that? Any time blocking or message control or control your inputs to make sure that you're not getting caught off guard by an email or by a Instagram post or something?
I've recently begun using these really handy do not disturb settings on, I mean, I have an iPhone, and this new update is really helpful to help make sure that you maintain your boundaries. So I have all the settings automated, and I also have like specific screens on my phone. So if I do open it up within a certain setting, it only shows me certain apps that'll be helpful and productive for me at that time. But yeah, I don't start anything until 10 o'clock. My mornings are precious to me, and I need to work out so that I can do my routine, enjoy some quiet morning time, feel like I have some time for myself, take a shower, get ready, feel good, have breakfast, and then I'm ready to go and I'm ready to give, my 100% in the mornings. But 10 o'clock has become my start time. I may work before that. I'll start at like 9 if I just have to post things, but I don't have to interact with anyone. But I won't answer an email unless it's an emergency. But no, but there are no emergencies really. I mean, it's social media. So
Yeah. No, in most businesses there aren't, right? And it just comes
yeah.
down to this, like setting boundaries, and not only setting boundaries with clients, with customers, with coworkers, but also with yourself and safeguarding against that little whatever Gary Vaynerchuk on your shoulder that's like, "Are you not hustling? Turn off the Netflix. You're not allowed to watch Game of Thrones." Flicking that little hustle bug off your shoulder and being like, all right, it's cool. I'm allowed to like make breakfast before I get into my workday. I
Yeah,
think that's so important.
yeah, totally agree.
Cool. Well, I think this is good. Let's wrap this one here. Guys, thank you for listening. I'm sitting here with Lauren Wesley, and I'm your other host, Jordan Shelton. If you like this, please, this is a new podcast, so it does us a huge favor if you subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Till next time, catch you later.